Hi, Lindsay.
Hello.
You okay? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Good. How was this morning?
It was good. I think good.
Good.
Hard to tell, isn't it? Because all cameras were off. You're just kind of presenting to, I don't know.
To a black hole.
Yeah, so I kind of got through, all the stuff that I wanted to get through, and the feedback at the end was good. There were lots of questions.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, well, that's good then.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Hi, Ellen and Paula.
Hello.
Are you okay?
Oh, very much so, thank you.
Good.
The sun's shining, and although there was ice on the bird bath this morning, it was bearable outside.
Yeah. Where are you? Because
well, I'm sorry I'm a cheeky person. For some extraordinary reason, I get all the LEP emails, even though I'm in Bedfordshire.
Oh, okay.
I think it's because I used to be on the East of England local development something or other. No, it was ERDF funding and all of that. Local management committee, that was it.
Yeah.
And I think people kept sending me Norfolk and Suffolk information. So it's always useful, because I look at your good ideas and think, we should be doing that in some way.
That's fine. We like to share.
I'm under a bit of a grey cloud here. I'm in Suffolk, yeah.
Lovely sun. Well, it was sunshine. It's clouded over a bit now.
Send it our way.
Oddly enough, I've had to water plants because there hasn't been any rain for at least a week. Some of the plants on the patio are looking a bit miserable.
Yeah, I've had to do much the same. It's after all that rain over winter, it's a bit ironic already.
Move my camera. Slightly cross-eyed looking at the wrong place.
I was whinging at somebody the other day because they'd got a fake background. And of course, when you move with a fake background, your camera can't keep track. And at one point, every time he was facing sideways at one point, every time he leant forward, his whole head disappeared. So we were being talked at by a headless person. Very disconcerting. Mostly it's just bits of hair and ears disappear.
Yeah.
I think I realised that I use my windowsill for a lot of filing system going on there.
My filing system is down to the left. I managed to extract a tray from when they're clearing out one of the rooms that sort of belonged to the church in Turvey, and they were just carrying a tray out of the room that had been gathering dust in the back of a cupboard. And I said, I can use that tray, and I don't know if you remember. It must come from, I don't know, the 70s. It's a melamine bottom and a plastic woven round the edges.
Okay.
And it just takes me back on a Red Admiral butterfly as the design in the middle of the melamine or whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's melamine. And there are holes in the melamine and the weaving goes through it. And I thought it takes me all the way back to the 70s, which is just lovely.
Oh.
It's really good for filing because the papers don't float off it.
Yeah, which might happen if I open the window.
That would definitely happen if you open the window. I was tidying up the filing last night. I was installing the tray and the filing, and discovered I'd been flinging. I just had a random pile of paper, and it goes all the way back to last September. So I clearly haven't filed since September. Oops.
It's all there though.
Sometimes somebody asks me a question in an email, and I just flick through the papers and I find the answer. What we discussed in January was.
Hi, Melissa. No, it's not Melissa, I presume.
Sorry, I've just jumped onto the laptop, so I've not changed it around. How are you?
Oh, okay, I'm good.
You're good.
but you might change the name if only to stop us being confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might need to tell me how to do that.
Top right of your picture, 3 little dots.
Yeah.
Click. Rename.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Well done. You've passed the test.
Namely? What test?
Right.
We're going to do a screenshot now.
I was consoling one of I organise events for the CIPD because my day job's HR, and she knew she was being recorded when she did a presentation on the 23rd of March. What she didn't know was that what they do is the recording. This is a local group here that are learning and development people, and of course, being learning and development people, they want everybody to have the opportunity to see the recording, notwithstanding it was a one-off session. And so to be fair, only the people attending, which I think was about 60 people, were sent a click link to YouTube. So she's on YouTube without having realised because they forgot to send it to her.
Oh no.
And I only found out, because I didn't know, I only found out from somebody else who wanted a certificate of attendance. So accidentally, I got the click link to this recording on YouTube of someone who didn't know it was there. So her next email was going to be, how long are you going to leave it on YouTube, and how private is it, and can anybody find it just by searching YouTube, or is it only accessible to the people with the specific click link? Because I don't know the answer to those questions because I'm not technical. But I mean, it's a bit fraught, really, all the recording. I have to say, with the Bedfordshire group events that I organise, I don't record any of them. And it's just because people are sharing. We're HR people, so we're whinging about our organisation. They record it. It's not going to work, is it?
Hi, Anya.
Sorry, I'm late. Hello.
Oh no, that's fine. I tend to find it takes me a while to get into Zoom because I don't normally use Zoom, so
That's the same.
so
I use Teams, so I was like, oh
yeah,
I have got it on my other computer, but
yeah, we normally use Teams, but for things like this, we find Zoom better.
yeah.
Okay. Right, we were expecting. So are you happy just to give it sort of 30 more seconds, and then we'll make a start if that's okay with everyone?
Yeah, sure. I'm just going to turn my washing machine off because I can hear it going in the background.
That's fine.
Sorry.
I might have a dog scratching at the door soon. Always the way, isn't it, once you start?
Apparently that's improved our behaviour on MS Teams particularly, which is a wee bit more formal. And I have to say my cat sometimes leaps up, and sometimes if he's on my lap you can't see him, but sometimes he poses just here and then you can see him, and it's very cute.
That spot in the sun there, they like that.
Oh yes, he loves. Well, actually he is there, he's just in the window embrasure. He's a black cat on a black sheepskin rug, so invisible.
I've got a Labrador, and he's getting a bit older, and he's becoming much more sort of vocal. And you know, if you're rubbing him under his chin, he's you know, and he's sort of enjoying it. But when he lies down, he tends to go like that. And occasionally, because I sort of like deliver coaching and training as well, and occasionally he'll be in the room with me. And then I'm really sort of paranoid then that, you know, somebody's thinking that I'm sighing on, you know, something that they're saying when I'm coaching them or something, and it's not me at all, it's the dog. But I suppose there could be worse sounds coming out of him, but you know, can be eventful, yeah.
Okay, let's make a start then, because it's 5 past. So thank you so much for joining us today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Natasha Waller and I'm the skills manager at New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership. Just following on from Paula's conversation, we are actually recording the session. One of the employees from last week's session can't make today, so they did ask. So I wonder whether you can either put in the chat or send me an email straight after the session if you're not happy for us to share it. We totally understand, won't ask any questions, but you know, if you're not comfortable with it being shared, then please just let us know. For those of you who don't know much about this, the work we're doing, and the reason for the pilot is we've been lucky enough to have received money from DWP as part of the pilot. So hence us being here today. So I'm joined by my colleague Lindsay Long, from one of the business advisors at the Growth Hub, and she has a particular focus on skills. And today we wanted to give us all a chance to share best practice, learn from one another, ask for advice, and really just support one another. Lindsay and I have learned along the way on the pilot. I had some knowledge about the work, but you know, we've uncovered a lot in the last couple of months. So hands up now, we might not have all the answers for you, but we'll happily go away. We've made a lot of contacts over the last few months, so we can always find out and come back to you. So also let you know, we've also taken part of this pilot, and as a LEP we've reviewed our own policies. We have found out we're not doing things as well as perhaps we could do, so we're making changes ourselves. So you know, we honestly don't claim to be perfect, and it's not an afternoon to single people out and make comment. The idea is that it's an open learning session. So if everyone's happy, do you want to introduce yourselves? Starting with Lindsay, do you want to say a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so as Natasha said, I'm a skills advisor with New Anglia Growth Hub. So the Growth Hub is really, we're managed by Suffolk Chamber of Commerce on behalf of New Anglia LEPs. So Natasha and I are colleagues essentially. The Growth Hub exists to help businesses across Norfolk and Suffolk to grow through offering advice on finance, events and support. So signposting often to that support and helping businesses to achieve finance. And my role within the Growth Hub is to advise specifically on skills. So working with businesses to look at their skills, what skills they have in place, where there might be skills gaps, and suggesting and helping guide through the various programs that are available to them. I think that it can be a bit of a minefield out there as to what's available to businesses. So my role is very much to help through that and to guide through. So yeah, pleased to be here today.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, so slightly different background. I am the head of reducing reoffending at HMP Warren Hill. So I've kind of joined in today because our population are getting older. We have residents, prisoners that obviously on release need work. So I'm trying to just sort of put some feelers out and listen to what people have got to say about what may be on offer, what companies may be looking for, so that what our offer is at work for our prisoner group is is accurate and what is needed. I need my men to be sort of work ready. So yeah, it's about really just listening to what you guys have got to say and make sure that if there are any gaps, that I'm looking to fill them, identify what the gaps are in the first place. So yeah, that's maybe it's very nice to be here.
Lovely. Rachel.
Well, knew it was going to be my turn sooner or later. So basically, I've got a portfolio career. So I'm self-employed. So I deliver coaching and training. So the coaching is outplacement support, and also sort of like going into organisations and helping support individuals who are maybe through restructuring a bit lost about what they want to do, or they're needing some sort of like guidance. I deliver that, and also training, which could be appraisal training, management training, all sorts of anything to help individuals or organisations to become more productive, or have a better sort of like the balance and happier sort of engaged workforce. So I do that. I also deliver outplacement support as an associate for a different organisation. So outplacement support, and that could be to anybody in the whole world. Like today, I was coaching somebody in Dubai, just through over Teams. It could be somebody down the road from me. Sort of another time. So, and that's all different levels. And as well as that, I've also been a tutor where I've been delivering employability training, and then in Norfolk specifically to the 50 plus. So sort of aimed at that, on for DWP. So sort of putting together a sort of a package of employability support for that. So, and then in addition to that, then I'm training, I'm doing my CIPD level 7 in strategic management, because I'm feeling that I want to get more involved with the strategics, as well as what I'm doing, getting more involved with the strategic side of things, and seeing things. I've worked very closely alongside HR, obviously, and sort of like managers, and but just getting a bit more sort of insight into that. So when I saw this, it just seemed to really fit, because obviously it's in my area. It's an area that I've been sort of like working with, and whether I'm supporting an individual or working with an organisation, I thought it would be a useful thing to meeting to attend.
Lovely. Thank you. Anya.
Hi there. So I'm employed by Mind, but I'm part of a team of employment support advisors working for the Wellbeing Service in Norfolk and Waveney, who's part of the IAPT services. So we work with people who are experiencing primary mental health conditions, sort of mild to moderate conditions, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing, and supporting them to either gain employment, so if they're looking for employment, so find, return to employment if they've been off sick with either a mental health issue or another issue that has then exacerbated their mental health, or to actually retain the employment that they've got because of that. And so part of our role is to coach clients to improve their career progression, either move into a new role, explore new career options, completely change direction sometimes, because it could be that the role itself was causing the mental health issue and that they absolutely hated it. Positioning clients for future opportunities, supporting them with employment issues within the workplace. Sometimes it's mediating with their management team to make sure that there is a good life-work balance, or helping them go back into the workplace with sort of a return to work phased approach. Pretty much all of that, and also specialising, for myself anyway, in the digital marketing space, because I worked in digital marketing for about 23 years, okay, in quite senior positions. So quite a lot of people are sort of moving into either marketing or the digital marketing space now, because of lots of opportunities in that area, and especially in Norfolk, being quite a digital hub. So I tend to get all of the people that are looking to get into that area, or change direction into that area. So I'm kind of coaching people in that. And outside, similarly to Rachel, outside of this, I'm also a level 5 cancer, but I don't work with older people. I generally work with the younger people. So I work with the YMCA and a schools project, which is a bridging project between sort of identifying a problem and waiting for CAMS.
Okay, lovely. And Paula.
Hello, I'm the interloper from SEMLET, South East Midlands Local Enterprise Partnership, where I happen to be on the Skills Forum, and we have somewhat erratic meetings on the Skills Forum. I couldn't make the last one, but of course this has been exercising us considerably in this part of the world, because we have an ageing workforce, with the exception of Milton Keynes, which has a lot of young families. So that's been really good fun. I chair Bedfordshire Rural Communities Charity, where our workforce is ageing and our beneficiaries are mostly older people. But if it all goes ahead, we're about to embrace a really interesting project down in Dunstable, which will be young people. So that will rebalance us, because we were heavily older people based, and it was all about new skills, as you say, in health and so forth. I'm a public governor for Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust, who used to look after one of the prisons, Chelmsford Prison, where we utterly failed to get any decent training incorporated into it. And we ran away as fast as we could, because, I mean, it's not my problem as a public governor, but we ran away because the amount of money that was coming in for ongoing training and development was totally inadequate. So we just gave up on that one. And I keep a really interested weather eye, because my hobby is CIPD. I teach on the level 7 at University of Bedfordshire, 2 modules. And so I listen to my students and I watch what's going on. And in fact, coming up in May, I'm going to be dealing, would you believe, with the older worker. And CIPD syllabus at level 7 has a whole 3 hours on how do we cope with the fact that demographics were, prior to COVID, keeping older people on longer, and we're short of young people. And now the unemployment rate has gone up for both ends of the spectrum, and the people who stayed in work are in the middle. So the problems have been accelerated by COVID quite remarkably. So older people aren't staying in jobs. So from my point of view, for my lecture in May, I'm hoping to get some really neat ideas from you guys. But obviously, I've read the research from previous years where we were talking about it. There's been some really good booklets from DWP, from CIPD, and from other organisations about keeping older people engaged, which is really good. And particularly the whole issue about flexible working, which we're now all talking about, because there's a lot of research which says you shouldn't have somebody still doing 37, 40 hours a week if they're an older worker. It's just not really fair. So from that point of view, it's been really interesting. Plus, I should say, in effect, declaring an interest, ePut is in some sort of alliance with Mind for some part of Essex. And I can't now remember whether it's the improving access to psychological therapies or one of the others. But so there's an overlap there. So I'll be careful when I talk about Mind, because they're very good.
Lovely. Okay, so we've got a good mix of people here this afternoon. So hopefully we'll have some good discussion going on. So if the initiative is new to you, so the DWP for years called it Fuller Working Lives, and on week 2 of this 10-week pilot, they suddenly changed it to 50+ choices. So excuse me if I sort of interchange between the two phrases, but it's fundamentally the same. Apparently a new minister came in and didn't like the title, and then so there was a long meeting, which I'm sure you can imagine within government, about what the new name should be, and there's some interesting suggestions I've heard. So DWP are obviously concerned that there's not enough support to support the over 50s, so people will often leave the workforce early. So for them as individuals, it may lead to financial issues for them, unless they've been able to build a big nest egg and put it into savings or some other sort of asset. But also people feel they need to leave because they're not having open and honest conversations with their employers, or all their employers aren't being flexible, and obviously that's not good for society. It's not good for the economy either. The other two broad themes are careers and also healthy lifestyles. So we've been trying to work on all three. As part of this pilot, DWP are keen to capture some evidence of what employers are thinking generally about the different interventions. We've got to give some feedback on what approaches have been working and what can improve. But 10 weeks is no time whatsoever, and it's obviously particularly challenging at the moment when businesses have got enough to face, and lots of people are going out to them for asks already. So it's we have had some positive conversations, but it has been a challenging time. So so with the finance, some of you may be aware that approximately 20% of the universal credit claimants are over 50. Our local figures very much match the national. To be a universal credit claimant, you can be in or out of work. There's I'm not an expert on it, but you can obviously get universal credit if your hours are not full time and or your wages is low. So it doesn't actually mean that you're out of work. But the number of claimants has increased by 130% in the last 12 months, and the over 50s have been significantly impacted. There's a lot of focus on young when you read the press, but very little on the 50 plus. You probably all read reports that often the older worker finds it hard to get into a job, and will often get rejected, and and there's probably a little bias in the workplace about that, and that's obviously not right, and these people might have sort of 10 to 15 years left in employment before they can access their pensions. For those of you who came to the webinar, we had a really good session from the Money and Pension Service, and they talked about provision for pensions and also debt management. So we thought we could sort of start off the afternoon talking about the financial arrangements in different workplaces, and whether you feel that there's enough support for employees with their pension. So do we feel that either as individual companies, or if you're consulting and reviewing of other businesses' pension set up, do employers have a good introduction when they join the company? Are there regular intervals where they have an independent broker come in and review it? Are the preparations for retirement appropriate? Things like that. So happy to sort of throw it out to the floor. And Paula, would you want to make a start?
Only because I have access to reports. CIPD have been pushing for the last 2 years financial well-being, and there are some superb reports upon it. And I've had Charles Cotton come and talk twice to the local branch about financial well-being. And what was fascinating was that the first research about 2 years ago, they got survey questionnaire responses back from people, and the 60th hour year salaried people were just as anxious as the national minimum wage and national living wage salaried people. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. We can put in the chat box. If I can find the report, I'll probably can't find a click link. But anyway, but what he was saying was, it isn't just the low earners, it can be quite high earners are equally anxious. So the CIPD have said to all HR people who are CIPD members, financial well-being has to be at the heart of your employee value proposition, forgive the jargon, and part of your employer brand. And so that goes all the way from the employee assistance program, where financial advice is the single biggest signing up reason for an employee assistance program. And again, most of the organizations I work with have an employee assistance program. And that what they're talking about is how you get people to make good decisions. So the recent presentation we had back at the end of February to the students at Bedford College was about rewards and benefits that are age appropriate. And so he picked through and he said, on the one hand, don't pigeonhole people, but on the other hand, the young people need to be persuading that even if they can't auto-enroll, they ought to, so they can opt in. And the older people need to be persuaded that they should top up as much as possible so that the company matches. And it was a really good presentation because it was picking up the issues that matter to people in terms of rewards and benefits, because everybody behaves in a short-term way when they're at work, but actually they have to think for the long term. Because the last time I saw the stats, it's frightening that if you increase when you're in your 20s, your pension contributions by a very small amount, that makes an enormous difference to your lifetime pension. And all the calculations I've seen say that people who thought they were going to have a company pension of a reasonable amount, it isn't. And the state pension is never going to make up for it. So it's been really interesting from the CIPD on that point of view. And I have noticed that more and more companies now are giving pensions advice in a very careful way, because you're not really supposed to give pensions advice unless it's utterly objective and neutral. So there are conflicting bits of rules and regulations for us. But apropos your point about older people not getting jobs, one of my students who strongly believes in diversity and inclusion persuaded a line manager to take on an older male who had worked as a middle-ranking civil servant, whose administration skills were fantastic. It was for a basic admin job. And the line manager was very reluctant. And it was because the word overqualified was said, which wasn't fair because the man wanted a job. And then they said, oh, he'll leave really quickly, he'll get bored. No, he won't. But in effect, it made when he finally did start work last December, it made the environment quite hostile. And I'm not sure he's still there because the line manager just couldn't cope.
Lovely. Yeah, I mean, different employers have different approaches. In my experience, some people will take on the best candidate, even if they're overqualified. Others won't touch them because, as you say, they feel that they won't stay, which is unfortunate.
I mean, so yes, when I'm sort of like delivering the employability, that's something that I have to sort of talk to people about, is how you can promote yourself, because obviously there's prejudice against young people and there's prejudice against older people, and so it's they'll think older people are hard to manage, that they're going to be slow, picking things up, and I think also that a lot of people I think a lot of people are worried that if they're a line manager, that the older person will know more than them, and they feel threatened, by that as well. So they've got, all of that to battle with. When I'm delivering out placement support, so when I've been delivering with coronavirus to factories and all sorts of organisations, that the whole sort of range of organisations. But I mean, I've sort of inbuilt, delivering another part. So it used to be CV writing, interview techniques, job search, and obviously adding LinkedIn and using IT for job search now, because not just older people, but people find that sort of like quite tricky if they're not used to it, especially if they've been doing some sort of like manual job or they haven't had to use a computer. But now I've added in this year, added in another part of my workshops, which is about money and benefits, so that people can start thinking about that as well, how to save money as well as how to sort of like make money, and where to find financial, support and advice you know, as well. And I try to, you know, address all of the elephants in the room, you know, and just come out there and talk about it and talk about mental health and everything like that. So, you know, that it's not something that somebody's worrying about. I'll just bring it up, and that's been my sort of like campaign. But I find that mostly that the employers are talking about finance, because that's what you asked about. You know, they'll set up a meeting as part of the outplacement support, but I think that's probably in a lot of cases the first time that it's been discussed, you know, what through them. Not necessarily the first time, actually, you know, you're right, sort of like Paula, probably at the start when they were taken on, but nothing sort of, you know, in between. So I think it would be really good, wouldn't it, for them to start to say, you know, maybe all the way along, but maybe sort of in their 40s, you know, to start to be thinking about it, you know, earlier on, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd imagine, Anya, a lot of the anxiety issues that you're seeing in the workplace might stem from financial worries, or they would definitely compound any anxiety.
Especially for people in their 50s who are not working. Yeah, that is a real problem. And similarly to what Rachel just mentioned, you know, not just anxiety, but confidence. In terms of, you know, they've had a career for some time. They may not have had to apply for jobs for a very long time. It depends when they finished their career. And they feel like they're lacking confidence in terms of applying for new roles, or completely changing their career path because that wasn't what they wanted to do in their older years. And so it's building up that confidence, and also pointing them in the right direction to get help with benefits. And some of that is sometimes doing some voluntary work to try and gain some experience and not feel that the pressure of actually having to go into paid work straight away, where they can gain some skills and a reference to be able to get themselves into employment.
Ellen.
Good afternoon. I'm going to speak slowly because my accent might throw you. I would like to respond to something Paula said by sharing with you this from a slide that I share during a workshop called Overcoming Ageism. And the slide is titled Overqualified. Has a hiring manager ever told you during an interview that you're overqualified? Overqualified when you're older is actually code for one of two things. Either you are too expensive or you are not going to stay in the job for very long. If the hiring manager develops these opinions pre-interview, you will likely not get the interview. If it is developed during the interview, you will likely not get the job. Let's talk about techniques to prevent both of these scenarios. As we have discussed, neutralizing your written presence prior to the interview is imperative to preventing ageism during the screening process. During the interview, using the techniques we have discussed to reinforce the image of being energetic, relevant, and most importantly, bringing value to the company is imperative. To specifically battle being perceived as overqualified, answer the hiring manager's unspoken concerns with concerns and questions. By the time the hiring manager says to you, you are overqualified for the position, you have probably been written off. Take the bull by the horns. It's okay to soften your detail. If you work as a vice president for a bank, instead of using that title, identify the department you worked in, such as being a loan officer. In my state of Washington, an employer cannot ask your prior salary on an application or during the interview. This can be used to your advantage if you were highly paid and applying for a significantly lower paying job. The typical millennial stays in a job 2 to 3 years. You can go into the interview with a plan. You can use the argument that you are willing to commit a minimum of X years to this employer, maybe more if the relationship is going well. The hiring manager will see this as a win. That's all.
Lovely. Thanks, Ellen. I have read something similar, and it's it's quite powerful.
Do you think, Ellen, do you think there's a difficulty when people are submitting their applications or CVs to come across or to reduce that a little bit? Because if they're applying for roles that are not as highly paid or not the same level, how would you get around that before even getting to interview?
We advise that mature workers should never use a chronological vitae. They should always focus on what they bring to the employer, a skills vitae. And we advise, as I said, to soften, maybe leave some jobs out that are well beyond the scope of the job they are currently applying for, and brand themselves in a way that is going to be acceptable to the hiring manager to show that they're attractive for this particular job.
That's a really good idea. That's similar to what I suggest, sort of a skills-based offering. I mean, and depending what sector they're working in, I mean, marketing is quite a good one to get round because you can do it as a portfolio of work rather than a CV. So you're kind of selling yourself as a brand, as you say.
Yes, and I recommend if they have a portfolio and it is appropriate to put it into a blog, that is showing that's overcoming one of the unspoken stereotypes about being a technophobe. Because if you're demonstrating your work in a very modern way, people are not going to make those assumptions about you.
Yeah. And LinkedIn, actually, I think Rachel mentioned LinkedIn, is a great platform for that if they can just get themselves round LinkedIn to create their own portfolio there.
I think it's a shame to a certain extent that we have to talk about candidates kind of, not including some of their experience. And unfortunately, that's kind of the way it is for some roles at the moment. Some employers are also quite prescriptive in their recruitment. So it's you would have to fill in an application form that prompts you to list certain things. So I think this project is great in that, the aim is to talk to employers and work at it from that end and raise employers' awareness of these issues and the benefit that older workers can bring. So hopefully in the future, we don't see this kind of, people being rejected because they're overqualified and that term being used to really say, yeah, unfortunately, we think that you're too old for this role or you're beyond sort of what we have in our minds as the ideal candidate. So yeah, I think this project is great in that it is opening up conversations that hopefully will allow employers to see the benefits of an age diverse workforce. But we're quite a long way from that, but we're taking steps in the right direction, hopefully.
So some of the things employers have done is looked at an age profile of their workforce and banded it typically into 10, bands of 10 years and seen how diverse their workforce is, and often that's a stepping stone to seeing what your profile's like and making adjustments. And I know our colleague Alison, she sat down with the business and they looked at their website and it suddenly dawned on the employer that they everyone looked really young and sending those messages out, you know, or perhaps everyone's young, so perhaps I won't fit in, and just even simple steps to changing your practice. I mean, we've recently put a skills report together, and because I was doing this work, it'd gone out to publishers to develop, and it come back with lots of young people in the photos, and there was us saying, oh, we've got to do more about lifelong learning, and everyone was young who were studying. So just making simple changes like that. I mean, we've gone out to employers, and as I said, it's a tricky time at the moment. So making those stepping stones is just an easy way to go about it. Matt, how do you with your you call them customers now, don't you?
Prisoners, yeah.
How do you sort of set them up financially, you know, for the financial situation, you know?
So yeah, I mean,
all that sort of money management.
Yeah, so financially, it's a very difficult conversation because obviously their earnings in our custodies, not what they would be earning outside. So we do support around money management. We do some courses and that kind of stuff. But just listen to some of the conversations about the age gaps and all this kind of thing around what employers come up with and what they discuss is quite interesting, because we flip it on the head almost. I was just writing down on a pad that actually in all of our employment opportunities within the establishment, we analyse what groups we have within each, whether it's a workshop, in an education class. And if we've got in, for example, our woodwork workshop, you know, a large amount of, I don't know, 20 to 30-year-olds, but no 50, 60-year-olds, we will look at that, we'll identify it, and then we'll go and ask that group of residents about why they're not engaging in that particular area of work. And we do the same for a lot of protective characteristics, actually. So that was quite an interesting conversation to listen to around that. But yeah, financially, it's slightly different. I mean, for us, our prisons are long term, so they've all been in for a very long time, sadly. So yeah, for us, it's more about pathways into employment. Yes, of course, universal credit if that's the way forward. But what we're set up to do, or what we're trying to achieve, is getting our residents that have already got a significant hurdle to jump because they've been in custody into employment. So when you start to add 50 plus and everything else, it's quite a significant challenge.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously a lot of people at the moment, you know, they might be in stable employment, but they're perhaps their partners or someone else within the household has been made redundant or on furlough. So although you might see your colleagues as you know, in the same role, same hours and what have you, as a household they might be facing financial challenges at the moment. Are any sort of conversations happening in the workplace that you're hearing, and how are people dealing with that, or do you feel that they're just not happening at the moment? Paula.
I'm back with the Employee Assistance Programme. Some CIPD research, just a quick pulse survey, said that EAPs, the top ones are now financial well-being of self, and then financial well-being of whole family. So the whole family issue is now creating major concerns. And as I say, the good companies with the employee assistance programs have got the counsellors on the phone. Separately, one of my trustees is Citizens Advice in Dunstable, and he said it's all about the finance of the family, that the consequences of just one person tipping over, it can destabilise everything, the mortgage, just even food. So you'll have all read about food bank usage going up, and it's now people who would never have dreamt of going to a food bank, but because one person has been furloughed and it's not enough, or been made redundant and it's not enough. And pregnancies come up. The article I was reading this morning was that there's been some very embarrassing behaviours from my colleagues in HR who have made women who are pregnant redundant during this whole episode of COVID. And it's just appalling, because quite often that was the person earning the best money and had fully expected maternity leave and that protection. No longer. So it's been a really difficult issue. And so what the good companies are doing is that they're not as altruistic as maybe we'd like, in the sense of advancing loans. Although I did read one company was prepared to give you a loan if the family circumstance had changed. But they're certainly saying to people, make sure you manage your debt. And there is, I've forgotten the proper name of it now, but some companies have instituted borrowing on your payslip ahead of time if there's an unexpected expense. So you've been going along nicely, but then the washing machine breaks at the same time as the cooker, and you've got 2 small children. And so now some companies allow you to take an advance on your salary, but of course that's only a short-term matter and so on. But it is particularly difficult for people. And again, what I was reading this morning said young people and ethnically diverse people who are young especially were classically in 0-hours contracts and short-term work and in hospitality coming into COVID, and therefore their unemployment rate, even ethnically diverse graduates, the unemployment rate is double that of white graduates. So now what I'm conscious of for the older population is they've got children who aren't in the job they anticipated being in, who are still at home and adding to the household finances. So everybody's being squeezed by caring for someone whose pension is inadequate and for caring for someone who should have left home by now but can't.
Or has moved back in.
Or has moved back in, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. Lindsay.
So yeah, do we want to move on to the next sort of key area of the pilot, which was careers and working practices, and just to kind of give a bit of background on why this has been a key part of the pilot. So nationally and locally, we've seen productivity levels in the UK compared particularly to other G7 nations has been low. And I suppose it was, yeah, compared to Germany, where we work 38 days more on average per year, our productivity is considerably lower. So we've kind of looked at potentially why this is, and it seems to be sort of hiring low-skilled, low-paid workers to carry out tasks is inherently inefficient, is the findings. So essentially we need to skill up across the workforce, and there is lots in place for younger people and those entering the workforce. But as I say, we really need to look at skilling up the whole workforce. So we wanted to explore through the pilots of how we're doing that and what tools there are in place to do that. And some of the things that I talk to employers about are using schemes such as apprenticeships for all ages, because it's fantastically funded training. So 95% government funded or 100% with levy share. So that could be a great way of upskilling older workers, or all workers really, but also just looking at the ongoing training. So somebody needs to move into a more flexible role, perhaps because they have caring responsibilities. So how are employers supporting that journey with those who are sort of at the later stage of their careers? So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on kind of what we're doing, or if we're doing enough to upskill older workers and how we look at that. I don't know if anyone wanted to kind of add to that conversation, or I can talk a bit about some of the conversations I've had.
I was just going to say that we had a really good presentation from a chap from Norfolk Apprenticeships programme who had a fantastic video made actually about older people going into the apprenticeship program and completely changing careers, which I've been sharing with a lot of my clients, because they hadn't even thought about that prospect. And he even mentioned that if one of my clients found a role that they would like to go into, if they could just sort of get in touch with him, he would be able to then approach that company to see if there was that kind of opportunity to open up conversations about apprenticeships. I think that he sent me a document that I can maybe share around.
Yeah, I'd like to get my hands on that. So yeah, is that Simon?
Yes, it is Simon.
Yeah, have a chat with him. Yeah, because I think that's
a great presentation.
Yeah, I talk to employers about a lot, and I think apprenticeships, just by their very name, you know, people immediately assume a younger person, but essentially, you know, it's on the job training, it's elongated training, but the advantages are huge in that, yeah, for the business it provides the skills that are needed. But for the individual, you know, they take those skills and that training and qualification on with them should they move on. So yeah, it is a win-win. But I think it's that perception, isn't it? It's about, and that's where this pilot project has been great, because it's allowed conversations to happen and sort of prompted conversations and allowed businesses to look at things a bit of a different way.
I think the NHS, or you know, any of those sort of NHS services, they tend to do pretty well with the apprenticeships, and they're not just pointing them at younger people.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think you can negotiate to do part-time apprenticeships through them as well. So there's some opportunity out there, but maybe needs more investigation.
I've just come from a CIPD, I think it's Kickstart sort of webinar. It's about, you know, the younger people and the struggles that they're having, and they were mentioning on that, they had a slide up there that was talking about the apprenticeships, and they're offering £3,000 to employers for all ages now. So they haven't, because before it was just more towards the young, although it's like, you know, for years, like, because I've sort of like come from a college, you know, FEHE sort of background prior to what I'm doing now, and we were always saying like, oh, it's for all ages, but it you know, the ways that it was set up, it was more sort of like geared towards younger. But now, yes, it is all open to all. So yeah, it'd be brilliant to see that the video, Anya, because I'm always saying to people, you know, we could think of an apprenticeship, oh no, they're for young people, but you know, it's good to have that sort of like promotional material as well.
Yeah. There are a few other, just in terms of kind of training support, there's obviously skills support for the workplace, which is a program of, you know, a various number of skills and training qualifications. They're available for SMEs, and I often talk to businesses about, you know, you can upskill anyone with these, and that's funded support. So there's a variety of training programs available through that to SMEs, and that's something that we talk about quite often. And then, you know, with kind of recruiting people into the business, obviously apprenticeships is one way to upskill, but there's a lot of programs out there for youngsters such as Kickstart, which are getting a lot of airtime at the moment, but there are also there's swaps available through the DWP that allow individuals that might have had gained their skills and experience in one sector of industry. A swap is essentially, it's a work placement with a bit of training provided and a guaranteed job interview at the end of that training, and it allows the business to look at whether somebody coming from a different sector might bring some transferable skills successfully into their business. So that's all supported as well by the DWP, and that's open to candidates of all ages. So that's something that we talk about quite a lot. Sorry, Paula.
No, don't apologise. I was really interested in what people are saying. Again, looking at the companies with whom I work, I'm so glad that Natasha mentioned the NHS, because their mandatory training and development, or was it Anya? Somebody anyway. Their developmental training is extraordinary. And when I read the staff bulletin for ePut, each week, the section on training, which is to broaden skills and give them additional prospects, is open to everybody very clearly, and is very, very good. And of course, they're now working much more closely with the University of East Anglia and the other one, I've forgotten the name, Ruskin, Anglia Ruskin, working much more closely on associate health professionals and associate medical practitioners as well as doctors. But in the main, what's happening that I notice, so for example, Amazon, I've met a lot of the students at the college who are Amazon workers, and it's been really interesting that their proposition to everybody who works there, no matter what their age, is you might think you've just come for a warehouse job, and it is a hard job, but if you apply for any professional course at a college, we will pay for it. And I've seen a terrific upsurge in quite mature people coming along on the level 3 and the level 5 at Bedford College to do CIPD training. And it's been really interesting. And so Amazon have taken a view that it's about talent management, not succession planning.
That's fantastic, isn't it? That's available to. And obviously the other thing to mention is the lifetime skills guarantee, which so that's the level 3 offer. So any adult that doesn't have an existing level 3 can look at, I think there's over 400 qualifications that they can look at to improve their own skills. And obviously that's something, to make individuals aware of. But I think when we're talking to organisations as well, just to mention that and just say this is an option for your employees to skill themselves, but it's to your benefit as well, because those are really valuable skills that they're going to be bringing into the business. So that, there's a few different offers out there, but it's quite, I think it's really refreshing to be able to have those conversations with businesses about quite honest conversations. What are you doing on an ongoing basis to ensure the skill levels of all of your workforce are kind of maintained, as it were, and improved? Sorry, Rachel.
Sorry, I totally agree with that, but it just sort of sparked my my thoughts regarding, so having worked on in the college and on various ESFA funded support, I find that employers, they don't know how to apply for these things, or they think it's too much. And so when I was sort of like delivering some of the programs, we used to actually help them to complete the process, or make it so easy for them that they didn't really have to think about it. And I think there could be a piece of work around that, in supporting employers, whether it's just some training or briefing to bridge that sort of like gap, because they might want the apprentice or the person to be on that sort of like program, but they just don't know how to go about it, or it looks like too much hard work for them. So I think that could definitely help, with. I think
that is the reason for my role, essentially. So that's I think what I'm here for. Is that right, Natasha?
Oh, okay.
And I think when I'm having conversations with those employers, then that's great, because they've come to me, but it's actually getting out there and just saying, this is what we can do. We can help you through this, because you're right. It's a bit of a minefield, really, isn't it? There's a lot of support out there, but I don't think necessarily that employers know that it's for them. And if they do know it's for them, then it's a bit confusing how to access it. So that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they think, there's a catch. I mean, I had some funding, in previous years for free outplacement support with £1,000 or £1,500 of funding, for training. And I'd be contacting organisations, and they'd be like, but I say it's free, but how much does it really cost? They sort of like can't believe that it could be just, that simple. There's always a catch. So sort of like giving them that faith, really, I suppose, in the process.
The small to medium-sized businesses are really the powerhouse of the economy, and the, you know, job creation and skill development is what's going to really drive the recovery now. So it's more key than ever. So yeah, that's why I'm here. But I think it's great to be able to have more of those conversations. So definitely I've noticed over the last even month or so, you know, as things begin to open up, it's great that the incentives are there from the government, because, you know, there really is a need for skill development at all levels. So yeah, I think there's been a lot of conflicting priorities over the last year. It's just been quite difficult, but now beginning to see things open up, we're beginning to see more and more businesses wanting to access that support, which is great.
Lindsay, are there any particular sectors that you're finding are more open to take this kind of stuff on and open to conversation?
I think in terms of using apprenticeships, I'm talking to, where traditionally I think apprenticeships have been strongly used, so engineering, manufacturing, hospitality, I'm beginning to see now that things are opening up. And then I think in terms of kind of the older workforce, so using training for older workers, I think that's a bit of a mixed bag at the moment, and most of my conversations are actually around recruiting people into the business, so growing the teams. But then it can lead on to a conversation about, well, you know, who is going to be supporting this person? If you're looking at recruiting an apprentice, who in your team is going to support that person, and what sort of training and development do they need? So there's kind of a ripple effect that we can talk about, and that's where some of the other programs like skills support for the workforce can come in, and just open up more of a conversation about, you know, how does your workforce look, and what are you doing about skill development for everyone in the organisation.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't know if I've covered off on all of the bits around there. I think there were some comments, maybe Natasha, from Alison in terms of the midlife MOTs that she's conducted and the conversations I think that Alison's also had with businesses.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what people are thinking about changes in working practices. So like people reducing their hours, perhaps for caring responsibilities. I mean, in my experience, I mean, it's not always perfect, but employers have got better about supporting people when they go off to have families and when they return to work, but they're perhaps not as good at the other end when people's lives flipped, and, you know, perhaps their children have flown the nest or more independent, but now as individuals you're looking after elderly parents, or perhaps, you know, your sick partner, or even disabled older children, and, you know, the care and responsibility might be a bit more ad hoc, often with the children if they're in school or childcare. It tends to be fixed hours, so you can easily work around that, and unless they themselves become sick and you suddenly have to do a mad dash to school or nursery to pick them up. Whereas elderly parents, you might suddenly get a call, you know, perhaps if they've got dementia and suddenly need something doing now, or got confused about something, and that care and responsibility time-wise might be a bit ad hoc. Be interesting to sort of have a bit of a conversation about how employers are dealing with that in your experience. Are they being flexible, or is there lots more that we can do?
Paula's got her hand up.
I'm being so good today. Sometimes I forget to put my hand up. I would just interrupt. Earlier this week, somebody called Claire McCartney, who's a really good researcher for the CIPD, has commented, because she wrote a report 2 years ago about how employers aren't looking after carers properly. And again, it was the squeezed people who have children and also older relations whom they're looking after. And so she's been using her research and building on that. And indeed, right now, discussed and being put forward to Parliament is we should be giving, I can't remember that it was 1 week or 2 weeks paid leave for carers to be used as they need, in the same way that you'd, because a lot of people give unpaid leave under the dependent regulation, the dependent rights that were enacted, gosh, 12 years ago. So unpaid leave is quite normal, or people take their holidays. But if it's not a very generous holiday process at a company, they're now saying there should be paid carer leave. Now, I have to say, my working with employees as I do, I could just see them all thinking, no, 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 not more time off, because already I'm not getting much productivity out of my staff. So I'm not sure where it'll go, but there is a feeling that something ought to be done. But then separately in the Sunday Times, because I have to read the business section, so I can tell my students what's going on out there. What was really interesting was COVID has precipitated an enormous number of older people, by which I probably mean 38 plus, because they're people who've got a perfectly nice career, have been furloughed or are flexi furloughed or are still at work, but actually it's brought it to a head how they're looking after people in their household, and they're now running their own businesses. So if you've been keeping an eye on the self-employment numbers, a huge number of businesses, far more than normal, have been created during COVID as people have turned the hobby, something they're passionate about, into actual work. In fact, just this morning, I was reading last Sunday, a bloke who went to Manchester University but now lives in Barcelona invented something called hopping. Now, I hadn't heard of it till I read about it this morning, but apparently it's a virtual conference that substitutes easily and immediately for a real conference. And he was actually inventing it while it was being run by companies who'd got a physical conference with all the tickets paid for, and it was going to run and people were going to fly in and do it. And they said, we've got to use this incipient, just about coded virtual conference. And apparently it is really like a conference. You can stop listening to the lecture and go and talk to someone that you've found, just like I do in chat boxes from time to time. And it gives you the entire experience of a real physical conference, but network. Now, he invented it while lying flat out ill with some autoimmune illness, which had precipitated him, and he'd previously worked for big companies. So he is not alone in creating during, I think it was February last year, he was writing the coding and then off it went. So there have been people who've said, I have put up with commuting, I have put up with getting the kids to school, I've put up with going out to cook dinner for my mum, and I've had it, I'm going to do something else. Now, 1 or 2 companies I've come across have helped people, and so they've allowed them to drop their hours, paid hours, in order that they can set up their hobby and turn it into a business. But it isn't very many companies, and it's not been formalized. But I'm watching it with great interest, because I think we're seeing a lot of creativity and passion coming out. And the irony is that the workforce that hasn't been productive against the rest of the G7 is terribly productive when it's self-employed, as I'm sure the self-employed amongst us know.
I'm actually noticing quite a lot of that with the clients that we're getting through. A lot of them are looking to either shift to a part-time job and try setting up a business at the same time, because they need a form of income coming in from from somewhere, and then they want some business advice. So either we're directing them in the right way to NWES or any other business skills networks and some courses, but also giving them some, so I'm helping them sort of in terms of marketing and stuff like that to get themselves up and running. But yeah.
Matt, is that something you've considered with your prisoners?
Yeah, not really, to be fair. I think it's in a word, no. It's very difficult for us. It's the conversations are very interesting. I've made loads of thought-provoking notes, but it's no, not at this time.
Yeah, I mean, over some of the disclosure issues with certain things, mightn't it? Which is often a barrier for people getting work as well.
Indeed, yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, our residents or prisoners are they're very long term, so the offences they're in for are quite significant. They're not the lesser end of the spectrum, sadly.
Because some of the prisons, they do various enterprise activities, don't they? You know, like the gardens and horticultural units and
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we've got a range. I was listening to, I think Lindsay was saying about engineering. Well, we've got an engineering workshop. So that, you know, and again, for me, my interest really is how we engage our workshops with companies out there. Again, for us, one of the difficulties we have is we're a national resource. So our residents, prisoners come from all across the country, which makes, yet again, things like employment, you know, it's just another hurdle for us to jump over. Again, most of ours are either life sentenced or indeterminate sentence, which means predicting their date of release is exceptionally tricky, which again, trying to get someone into employment is very difficult, because until we get that date, it's, you know, we have to almost wait for that process. So I think, yeah, from our point of view, when I hear some of the conversations, it's like, well, we've got an engineering workshop which is linked to establishments all across the country. We make things of high quality. We have some very skilled individuals. So yeah, from my point of view, it's about how I link those individuals, in particular, as we're discussing, over 50s into work.
yeah.
I've spoken with a couple of employers recently who have been, you know, one in particular has taken somebody exiting the prison service, and that, you know, a resident, sorry, not an employee, just couldn't say enough about that person's contribution, how they've influenced the team around them, and really open to taking others released prisoners. So I think there is an opportunity to build some relationships with employers who are open to that. But yeah, as you say, the challenge is kind of, yeah, where you release to, and yeah, having those dates, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think for a lot of employers who are struggling with some particular skills, I think will be really open to that.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, it's how I link into those those businesses, those companies. So yeah.
Lovely. Okay. If everyone's happy, we'll move on to the final strand of the project, which is the healthy lifestyles. So, I mean, so it tends to be a mixed picture with employers. Some are very good about putting on loads of activities to get the workforce active. Others don't do anything, and then you've got the ones in the middle, really. So it'd be interesting to hear different people's approaches to this, their views, whether the activities are age appropriate as well, and what responses from the staff. I mean, often you don't go to work to be preached at about your lifestyles and whether you're having enough fruit or whether you're going for enough exercise, whereas other people actively thrive on that sort of team spirit. So happy to throw that one out for any comments.
Yeah, I mean, from our establishment's point of view, it's something that we really heavily focus on, not just for our prisoners, but for staff as well. So we will hold events, we will get people involved for wellbeing days. They'll come in and they'll do assessments, whether that be for, you know, both sides of the people that work and live in the establishment, and it's so useful. It's the impact is quite significant. So perhaps it's easier for us because of where we are and what we do, but we still bring people in to assist with that. And like I say, it's yeah, that it works really well. We raise mental health awareness. We have mental health first aiders, as I'm sure a lot of places now do have. like I say, we do fitness awareness, healthy eating. Yeah, for us, it's a big positive step, and the impact that has on both staff and our prisoners is very well received.
Oh, that's good. Anya, I know we've engaged with Mind locally quite a lot over the last year. Do you want to say something about what you offer employers?
I mean, in terms of Mind, I'm actually working directly for the Wellbeing Service. So the Wellbeing Service offers wellbeing in the workplace, which used to be delivered face to face, but we're now doing those online. So I think they're an hour and a half kind of sessions. But actually, part of my remit is to market that to employers, and I'm looking at doing something quite specific in different industries. So, for instance, I've contacted the RNAA regarding the farming community. They've got like 1,500 members, and doing something specifically for farmers, and looking at their mental health and how they, manage that, and also looking at community champion training for some of that sector, so they can help each other out. And that's also something that we're running online now. They're, again, 1.5 hour kind of course. Everything's free. So that's how we're sort of engaging with employers.
Okay. Are you linked up with Yana? If you're trying to get into the farmers?
Oh, so they produce their own counselling content, don't they? Which I think would probably be in conflict with us. I'm not sure, but I know that they offer the farming community a service, don't they? Yeah. I'm going straight to the RNAA because of my background. I'm connected with them. So, right. and the same with construction industry as well. It's sort of two sectors which have got quite high rates of suicide, actually, and we employ quite a lot of people within this area, within Norfolk and Waveney, in both of those sectors. So they're two areas that I'm looking to try and get into.
Okay, I might link you up with someone. Do you know?
Oh,
Helen?
Brilliant.
Clements from Morgan Sindall?
No, but please do pass me details. I do know a safety person there, but but anyone else is useful. Yeah.
Paula's got her hand up.
Sorry, I'm assuming Natasha can't see the screen. I've just put in the chat box the Health and Wellbeing at Work annual. That's interesting. Yes, it's an annual report, but I haven't seen it yet for 2021. I suppose it's still early. But it has some superb case studies, because in the old days it used to be, we offer free neck massage to encourage people to come and accept our employment with us. And it's now got more serious, because what the single biggest reason for absence was in 2019 and 2020 was mental ill health at work, stress. It used to be musculoskeletal, but mental ill health has now overtaken it. And so even the most basic employer is now doing staff surveys, doing pulse surveys to find out how people feel. Now we're all virtual. The first question is, how is today? So you don't say, how are you, which is not very helpful, but you say, how is work today? Or what are you doing today? Or what's in your cup that you're drinking from? Oh, that looks good. Oh, well-being, yes, good. And from that point of view, employers are really trying hard. And COVID has really pushed it, because there are so many people who are anxious about COVID that it's accelerated all of the other anxieties that are going on. And therefore, all organisations, so my NHS trust that I'm a public governor for, they've got wobble rooms where you can go and get some tranquility, funded by Captain Sir Tom Moore, which was just perfect. Yeah. And they've got lots and lots of mindfulness sessions and meditation and healthy walking and healthy eating and nutrition, how to keep healthy during Ramadan, because obviously if you're not eating and drinking, it probably makes everything even worse. And so everybody is trying really hard to get people less stressed. And the article, every week, the articles from CIPD are about the stress that is out there, and that we need to be eating well. One of the ironies is, now I haven't read this is just me making assumptions. I've read we've stopped commuting, obviously, I've read that Greg's the Bakers and Pret a Manger and everybody are quite upset because nobody's buying their fast food. So then you ask, what are people eating for lunch and on the way home? And would have otherwise eaten on the way home. And there's a bit of me that's wondering, are we probably eating better because we're not commuting? But that's purely my hypothesis. I have no idea if there's any relationship with reality.
Possibly eating better but moving less. It's a balance, isn't it? That's just me.
No, I think I'm much the same. It's I'm getting my lunch and I'm not eating it in the car as I'm driving to my next appointment.
I think it's really important because that a lot of this is coming from the employer, because there is an awful lot of resource out there that you could go and find yourself, but when it comes from your employer, it almost gives that permission to say, you know, this is okay, take some time out of your day to make sure that you are okay. So I think that is really important, isn't it? And
when we were in the offices as a LEP, you know, one office was better than the other, but there'd be lunchtime walks and you know, just for 20-30 minutes, and you know, people went at all different speeds, and it was absolutely fine. And you know, some people thrive on that social interaction, and you know, often help the well-being and all that sort of stuff. And you know, no one forced it on people, but it was just a nice thing to do, and it encouraged you to leave your desk. So they've, you know, at work they've done some remote walking round the world, so everyone can log in their steps, and as a company you can see where you're going to, and it's like a group effort. You're not competing against one another, which has been really, really nice if you've wanted to engage with that.
Obviously, being the wellbeing service, we have a wellbeing day once every, I think it's the last Wednesday of every month or something like that. But it's sort of a half day where we sort of learn more about each other and what we're all doing, and then we get to do something nice in the afternoon. So last one was a guitar rendition by somebody, so we could all put in the music that we wanted the lady to play, and it was all online and she played. And then it's our own private show. That was quite nice.
So you know, moving on from you know, home clothes day or dress down day type of thing, it's more a well-being day. Oh, nice. I like that idea.
I think on our presentation we had some really good tips from Active Norfolk, didn't we, Natasha, who were saying, you know, programs that kind of bear in mind older workers as well, so they're accessible for all, rather than just kind of necessarily the really competitive, you know, how fast can you run 5K team competition. So more options that are out there and available for all members of the team.
Yeah, so don't feel as employers, or if you're talking to employers, they have to start from scratch. Each county have got an equivalent of Active Norfolk or Active Suffolk, and they've got a whole range of things ready to roll out. So they've been really useful.
I think it's also about the, you know, the senior management, isn't it, as well, you know, setting an example, you know, and showing people it's okay not to be having your lunch, you know, at your desk, and to, you know, it's all right to have time off. In fact, I was reading an article, I can't remember which one it was, on the CIPD website as well, and that was talking you know, about that, very much about the you know, the managers showing that if you are sort of, I think it was around the flexible working report that's there, and it was saying if you are offering flexible working, then you know, show your staff that you know, if you need to take some time off during the day to go and do something, that you're doing it, be open about that. So then that's giving them permission, you know, to show that they can do it as well, and make sure you're taking your holidays and that side of things. So I think that's starting, you know, walking the walk and talking the talk is very much, you know, part of it as well, isn't it?
I mean, one of our senior managers who will actively go for a walk with the staff, and it's, you know, it's a nice way to speak to them on a social basis rather than as a manager. And one of my previous employers, we worked at a really remote site, and we had half an hour for lunch, but if you wanted to go out at lunchtime for a longer walk, that was absolutely acceptable. You know, you just worked your hours accordingly, and you know, there was no questions asked at all. You know, that was just accepted practice. So, you know, there's lots of ways that the businesses can incorporate that type of thing.
Sorry. So,
Yeah.
So will you be sort of, I'm not 100% sure on what you're doing. I know that you're obviously doing the research for DWP, but are you going to be putting together a pack for employers then, or something that will be giving sort of like best practice?
Yeah, so that's nicely sort of bearing in mind the time. So on our website at the moment, if you haven't seen, there's a toolkit that we've put the webinar into 3 chunks. So if you didn't get to that, you can hear those presentations, and we'll keep building on the information on the website. We have to do a report for DWP, and I'm sure there'll be elements of that we will share, because it's, as I say, it's a learning tool for us, and we're keen for that to be expanded out. But you know, we're really keen, Lindsay, myself, and my colleague Alison, who can be here today, to keep this conversation going. So you know, don't feel that today's the only chance to sort of raise comments or bring best practice to us. Please keep in touch, and equally we're happy to keep in touch with you.
Brilliant.
Okay, any last snippets of information, best practice, or anything you didn't get out of today that we've got a few minutes left if anyone wants to say anything.
I mean, I know that Job Centre Plus used to do work trials, and I think you were talking about something, Lindsay, you were talking about swaps or something. But
Yeah.
I always used to, you know, I always sort of encourage, if I'm working with claimants or anybody, you know, anybody who's about to become a claimant, to, you know, to ask about the work trials, because they're a great, you know, I mean, it is, as Anya said, I found that it's all about confidence. But I mean, it's not just for over 50s, everybody, you know, and whatever level you are, even if you're the, you know, chief executive, it's all about confidence. And so if employers are willing to maybe offer taster sessions or, you know, work trials, that type of thing, then, and there's no risk, you know, it's not like I'm going to lose my benefit if I don't, you know, like this job, or it's not suited to me. And also I worked on a program where I was the careers advisor for encouraging women into non-traditional employment, and we set up work trials there. So people were, you know, they might have had, you know, it wasn't just for mums, you know, it was for all women of all ages, but some of them had caring responsibilities, and it was just the actual thing of being able to see the, you know, the breakthrough was, gosh, I can actually go to work, you know, I can manage to get to work on time, and I can do a whole day or a whole week, and it was okay, and you know, I can achieve that. And I think, you know, that sort of confidence to understand, you know, for some people is really important. So I think it's quite powerful, really, to be able to offer that.
I think particularly with the swaps, they're incredibly flexible. So I think, you know, they're really flexible with the employer and with the job seeker. So I think it's a fantastic scheme, and it is very much about taking the skills and the attributes that you might have gained from one different sector to another, and just it's about exploring that, really, isn't it? And I think employers, when I talk to them about it, are quite open on the whole to it, because, you know, we'll say it's a different way of recruiting. So it, you know, one real benefit is that it's going to add to your kind of diversity policies. You can't just recruit every single role in the same way and expect to get different results. You know, broaden things out and have a look at what else is out there and how to attract different people into your workplace, because there's huge advantages to being diverse, you know, age diverse, as well as sort of, you know, genders and age, you know, all kinds of diversity. So yeah, I think that's something that employers are talking more and more about at the moment. So it certainly appeals.
And that would be good for you, Matt, with your, you know, with your residents as well. If they did the work trial, then the employer isn't committed to employ them at the end of it. But if it all works out, I think the very, you know, I'm not saying 100% that they would do that, but I think that if they had a really good relationship with the resident, then it helps them to get a reference, you know. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, maybe with the you know, not residents, but, you know, people that have sort of come to me and haven't got a track record, you know, of employment. It's about trying to, you know, to have something between them and what's happened, and to have some, you know, as I say, a reference from an employer. And I think that that's where, you know, the work trials, that type of thing, would really sort of like benefit as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I thought when swaps were mentioned earlier, I did make a note of that. I think you're right. It's quite often that first foot through the door, in whatever shape or form that might be. And of course, the voluntary sector is significant, and, you know, that what you're talking about is absolutely, yeah, just the ability for, you know, like I say, one of our guys to actually start, build, have the opportunity would be amazing.
And the final thing I wanted to say is, I know that there's been talk about it for the aging sort of like workforce, you know, the disability confident, you know, sort of like logo. I think there's been talk, hasn't there, you know, regarding having something like that for the older workforce.
Yeah, that was a good prompt. Yeah. So Alison, my colleague, had muted whether we do that, because we've also got a youth pledge one. So it'd be interesting to see whether you think employers would be responsive to that. With the youth pledge, it's, you know, some people really like it.
I think they would like that. I think that would be really good. But then equally, Matt, you know, with the I don't know what you would call it, something confident, you know, that would be quite good. Because I mean, people like Timpson's, they specifically
they do, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also so listening to what you were saying about the labels, there's also a group of companies that sign in to ban the box.
Yeah.
So that, you know, through the application process, there's no question about what your past has been. And I think that's significant for what we're talking about.
Say bye, sorry.
Thank
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I think that's a really significant thing to do, because it breaks down barriers, doesn't it? It's you know, we whether it's disability, whether it's age, whether it's ban the box, I think that, you know, I think enterprise today needs to identify and work with all groups of individuals. And you're right, Timpson's are an excellent example of that in actual fact.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, from my point of view, I'm always trying to, I just raise all the topics now. So, you know, if I'm in a room and I'm delivering that placement support, I'll just say, you know, and if you have a criminal record, you need to think about this, or you could go and contact, I think, Unlock, or, you know,
Yes.
something like that, if you wanted to check out, you know, if you have a record. I talk about mental health. So I'm just like raising everything, so that I get those conversations going. That's what I try to do in my sort of like capacity, whether it's an employer or whether it's an individual.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be quiet now.
Okay, well, feel free to get get in touch with myself, Lindsay, or Alison's details are on our website. Thank you so much for joining us today and being so active and open with your discussions. We were hoping that you would speak to us, and
Yeah, it's been great.
I think Lindsay and I are.
I've got loads from it. So yeah, thank you.
But I've found it really, really interesting. So hope you have too. So yes, we will keep in touch if that's okay with you, and we'll leave it there today if that's okay.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you all.
All right.
Bye.
Take
Nice
care.
to meet you. Bye.
Bye.